Hey, you guys. I have been dropping the ball on my Sunday evening videos, so I'm trying to catch up with just a few thoughts that I've had over the last little bit. So I'll probably drop several of these videos um, over the next couple of days. But just wanted to share with you a little bit about something that has been on my mind lately, and that is the story of Nephi building a boat. And the reason it's been on my mind is because I feel it very keenly and personally in my life. I have over the last year, actually maybe more than that, but because I sometimes think that when we read the scriptures, we read stories in the scriptures, we think that those stories only happen to the great prophets. And they're just examples for us to look up to show how great those prophets were, like Nephi. And I think what we don't realize is that the reason we have those stories in the scriptures is for us, because I think that the Lord expects us to have those kinds of experiences. So he wants to show us what it looks like, and he wants to show us what to expect. And he knows that we're going to see those kinds of patterns and opportunities in our own life. So he wants to give us something to kind of look to. But Nephi building a boat, as miraculous as that story is not just Nephi building a boat. So I wanted to tell you what it looks like for me. So you all know that a couple of years ago, I saw this Family Restoration Center project, and it was like, yeah, that's really cool, and it's totally impossible. I don't even have $1 for that, let alone, I think the asking price on it was $200,000 when I saw it 2.5 years ago. Wow, like lots of stuff has happened in this amount of time. So I just let it go totally. And then a year and a half ago, when I started to have, I just had another meeting with God about stuff about what we were supposed to be doing, since we've been here like a year and a half and didn't know still. And I took this download on the Family Restoration Center, and then within the next week or two, I started to have this idea about this property. So I should go back and ask the guy if it was still available, which I did, and he said yes. So, and then I had to work for like 8 months to wrap my brain around if it was possible or not. Like, is it even something that we can do? And the thing that just kept coming back to me was this story of Nephi and the Lord asking him to build a boat. He had no idea how to do it. He's never done it before. It's way impossible to him. Like, how's he even going to do that? And it's become really, really personal for me, because that's exactly how I feel in this situation. And last year, before we left, maybe you know this, I don't know if you know this or not, but before we left, we had a meeting, a board meeting. Actually, the board meeting happened right after we got back to the U.S. in September. The guy that is our consultant for our nonprofit in the U.S., he invited us up to his cabin at Bear Lake, our whole entire board, and he was talking about the family. We were talking about our goals for the year, and so we were talking about literacy centers, we were talking about the Family Restoration Center. Obviously, the Family Restoration Center is a huge project compared to anything we've done up to that point. Like, we've done a few literacy centers. The first one was a huge project compared to anything we'd done before that. All of a sudden, we have something new that we are looking at doing. And at that meeting, some things happened where it became apparent that everybody on the board wasn't on board like I thought they were. I thought everyone was on board with the Family Restoration Center, and it became apparent that there was some split. And not only was there some split there, but some of the members were adamantly opposed. They weren't lukewarm about it. They were adamantly opposed. And some miracles happened there with when they express their opinion and their feelings that we shouldn't even be talking about the Restoration Center for at least 3 years, let alone doing it. And they were very strongly opposed. I'll just say it that way. It's more than that, but Anyway, so that night, the guy that was our consultant had a dream that he was working on renovating and restoring income properties for people and with his buddies, and they would go into these properties and fix them up while the owners weren't there, and then the owners would come back and it'd be all new and nice, and they'd be super excited and happy and everything was cool until they go into this one property. They start tearing things out and doing things and working on stuff, and the owner showed up in his dream to the property, and he said, "What are you doing? Like, how dare you come in here and change anything here without my permission?" And so the next morning, when we got back together as a group, and it was a pretty intense weekend. It was probably one of the most intense weekends of my life, not by a little bit. And there's more to it than that, but that next morning, sorry, hair in my mouth. That next morning, we got back together, and he told everyone in the group about that dream, and he said, "That's about you." He's like, "Usually this is what I would do. This is what we'd spend our time for the weekend drawing out." And he goes, "Last night I was thinking we were going to do literacy centers because according to how the world would do things, that's true. We wouldn't be doing this big of a project this soon. It wouldn't be happening like that." He said, but he goes, oh, actually, he didn't have the dream the night before. He had the dream a few weeks before, and he had been stewing on it for a few weeks, trying to understand what it meant. And then that night, it came to him, the night before, it came to him, it's about families mentoring families. It's about us. So he came back to the group, and he said, so if what you're supposed to do is the Family Restoration Center, if that's what God has in mind for you, then we need to change, like throw everything out the window that I was going to do with you today, and we need to make that happen. We need to build the strategy for that. And so he got it. So that's what we did, which triggered horribly those other people that weren't in agreement with it. Okay, so that's kind of the backstory. So back to Nephi. What does that have to do with anything? So lately, I've been thinking about that scripture, that famous scripture about Nephi, right? Like, I will go and do the things which the Lord hath commanded, because I know he won't give me anything to do unless he's going to prepare the way for it to be done, right? So here I am. Here we are, the beginning of the Family Restoration Center. No idea how we're going to do it. No idea what it's supposed to look like. Nothing, okay? Except that the Lord's commanded us to do it. The Lord's commanded us to do it. So here we are. We got Laman and Lemuel. We got people on the board that quit because they didn't think we should be going this direction, and because they didn't think we could do it. And kind of actively have tried to destroy some of what we've been working to accomplish. And so in our lives, I think we have that. And it's also a good idea to check ourselves where we are. Are we a Nephi, or are we a Laman and Lemuel? Right? Are we in that space where we can see how to do things, and we can trust the Lord will bring those, the information, the skills, the resources to us to do what he's commanded us to do? Or are we in that place where we just think that's ridiculous and stupid and you should never be doing that? And the reason I think it's been one of the hardest experiences of my life, because those were dear friends of ours, and they haven't spoken to us since. And I have to kind of let them go. And Gerald, who's our consultant, warned me that would happen, and he told me not to worry about it, but it still is hard. So, and then this week I've had some other things come up that have kind of brought that back to my mind, kind of triggered some things. And last fall, in November was when the new youth program came out with that song "Go and Do" that David Archuleta sings, and then there's another version of it too. It's on YouTube. You can look it up if you don't know it. But when they introduced that song, it was all about that. And there's one line in there about when the world says to back away, then I'll walk right through. Like the difference between Nephi and Laman and Lemuel is that Nephi would just walk to that thing that's impossible and trust the Lord that he had, number one, told him to do it, and number two, would teach him how to do it. And so that's kind of what I feel is my life right now, is learning that lesson that I've read about for years and years and years about Nephi, and now I find myself in the same situation. So I just think it's incredible and such a huge blessing that we have that comfort in the scriptures, and that we have those instructions in the scriptures with people who have lived through pretty much any experience that we could imagine in our lives. We can always find someone in the scriptures that has been there and done that, so that we can learn from that. So anyway, just wanted to share that with you and give you a little bit of insight about about what's happening in my own life, what'll probably happen in yours if it hasn't already. Just give you some courage to go and do. Love you guys.